Hey guys, Mix here, and in today's video we are back with our 1974 Indian ME100. So in last video we picked this thing up and kind of started to dive into it and see what it may need to get running. So if you guys haven't seen this bike yet, I picked it up last video from a friend, and it's actually his bike. He just asked me to get it running for him, and maybe we'll do a little tiny restoration type cleanup with it. But something that's very special about this bike is that, well, first of all, it was last on the road in 1978, and because of that, it only has 154 original miles. So that is absolutely insane. And I would think maybe the lowest mileage Indian of that era, maybe like in the country. But last video we did go ahead and remove the carburetor, which was absolutely destroyed. But we did go ahead and clean that up. But along with that, you can see right there, and why the gas tank is off, when we looked inside of the gas tank after prying that cap off, which was so rusted, it was completely rusted in there, like terrible. So I told my friend, and his dad actually took the gas tank and had all this stuff to clean it, and I recently got it back, and check this out. It is absolutely spotless in there. Now all that stuff on the bottom is kind of like a sealant, so I know it looks kind of wet, but it's not. But that is all clean, fresh metal. This looks like a completely different gas tank. That is really, really bad. And not only does the inside look good, but the paint on it actually cleans up pretty good as well. So, I mean, these fenders are in a little bit worse shape. They have rust and everything on them, but this bike will definitely clean up. And kind of, if I do go ahead and do a little restoration thing with this, yes, I can try and remove the rust to the best of my abilities. But for example, with the exhaust, I could easily, you know, sand that down and spray like that Rust-Oleum high temp black spray paint on it, and it'll look perfect. But there's no chance that I'm going to do that, or I'm not even going to put any type of paint on this thing, because the key is to keep it all original. The only thing that won't be original on this, unfortunately, is just because the last video I made with this was probably a month or so ago, and that is because I've been searching for a gasket, a float bolt gasket for the carburetor that we removed in last video. The inside cleans up really well, but the float bowl gasket on it was super dry and ended up breaking. So that's completely unusable. And I tried looking everywhere for a gasket for this carburetor. It's a Mikuni carb. I thought, you know, I really wouldn't have too hard of a problem finding it, but I cannot find anything on it. So what I went ahead and did is I bought a big roll of gasket material, and I'm just gonna go ahead and try to cut out my own gasket for that carb. It is a fuel resistant, you know, gasket material, so we really shouldn't have to worry as long as I cut it right. But I am gonna have to like sketch it out and try and cut it to the best of my abilities. I really would have liked to try and find one, but I literally cannot find one anywhere. So once I get that done, I could go ahead, throw back on the tank, put some fuel in there, check for leaks, and try and start this thing up. We know it's not locked up, it spins over freely. We did put some lubricant in the cylinders to let it settle in there. And also there are no levers on it. I still want to search for OEM levers, because I don't want to put some eBay special painted gold levers on it. You know, I would like to find a nice OEM set. But with that being said, let's go ahead and try to make our own gasket for this thing. Might take a couple tries, but I think we'll get it. Alright, so the gasket is all done getting made, and well, I mean, it's not the prettiest, but I think I did a pretty good job. The float still moves nicely. You can hear it inside. So like, you know, it's not overhanging and hitting the float at all or obstructing anything. I mean, as long as it operates, I guess that's all that matters, because this is kind of our best chance to get this thing running. So next step, what I'm going to do is throw on the gas tank, try and find some fuel lines, because the old fuel lines, which I actually think I have in here. Yeah, so these are the old fuel lines, and they are just rock solid. Yeah, see, they just break open. So can't use these. It's pretty much a fire hazard. So I'm gonna try and find some fuel line that I can use for it. I mix up some 2-stroke fuel for it, try to flow some fuel through there, check for leaks, and if all goes to plan, we're gonna try and fire this thing up. Now that the gas tank is on, one thing I do want to do quick before throwing on the carb is remove the throttle and kind of just look at the like kind of assembly inside, see if it needs to get lubricated and everything. I lubricated the throttle up, but as you can see, when I twist the throttle, it gets stuck. And that's without it, you know, already having the slight friction from inside of the carburetor. So it's just 2 Phillips head screws, so I'm just going to take it apart and see how it looks. Definitely doesn't look too bad at all. One thing I did just notice is that, I'm not sure how well you're gonna be able to see it, but there's a nut on the back of here for one of the screws. There's no nut in the back of the other one. It was kind of just laying in there, so might have to find something to fit in there to try and give the grip a nicer fit on the handlebars. So one thing I'm noticing is with the throttle cable, I can pull it and it'll release right back. So what I'm gonna do is spray some like Throttle oil down there and see if I can get it to move as good as I possibly can. Just kind of work it in there and then just clean up the throttle assembly. I found a little nut to fit on there and then see if we could get the throttle to snap back. I got the throttle kind of all tightened up and cleaned up. So what I'm going to do now is throw in the carburetor. I did find some fuel line that might work. It fits pretty tightly on the inner diameter. It is pretty thick outside though, but that should just be fine. So I'm just going to kind of wipe all this up while I have access to it. And then once that's in, I could go ahead and put some fuel in it and try and crank this thing to life. So right now I'm just going to mix up a fresh batch of premix for it. I'm going to run 32 to 1 and we'll see how she likes that. This might be a little bit heavier than 32 to 1, but I definitely would want to run it a little bit more oily since everything hasn't moved in 40 something years. First, fuel up. I'm not going to put a lot in, just enough for testing, I guess you could say. I had a feeling that that would happen. So this fuel line is way too big. I kind of have it like just zip tied right now because I don't have any clamps or any other fuel line. It's a Sunday, so I can't go out to the store right now and well, go and buy it. But I'm gonna see if the carb is full and just try and kick it over a few times and see if it'll at least fire. All right, choke is on, key is on. Just gonna give it a couple slow kicks first. All right, here we go. Woo! Oh! No way! No way! Woohoo! Wow, that thing sounded healthy. It fired right up! First time in 43 years, I think. How many years ago was 1978?
It was 43 years ago.
Yep, 43 years. It is literally idling right now, firing up like this thing was just ran like yesterday. I cannot believe this right now. Wow. And my homemade gasket seems to be working. Then again, I have the petcock off right now, so I am gonna go ahead and turn it off because last thing I wanna do is lean this thing out when the bowl runs dry. So what I'm gonna do tomorrow is pick up some fuel line that actually fits and it won't be all rigged up how it is like this. And we're gonna try and, you know, see if this thing actually runs clean, see if my homemade gasket actually holds when there's actually fuel flowing while it's running. But I cannot believe that this thing literally just fired up on like, I think it was the first actual kick. First time in 43 years since 1978, has 154 miles. absolutely insane. It's been a while since I've got something running like this that's like, you know, been sitting, because I used to do like the dirt bike stuff all the time. It feels pretty good, but anyway guys, with that being said, I'll catch you all tomorrow. Alrighty guys, so we are back here a couple days later with the Indian, and as you guys can see, I did go ahead and pick up some new fuel line, and also I did go ahead and repair the throttle. Because if you guys remember, this piece was snapped off and it kept, like, you know, disconnecting from here every time you hit the throttle and everything. So what I want to go ahead and do right now is get rid of this rigged up, way too big fuel line for this thing. And then I do want to go ahead and run it a bit longer, you know, check for leaks with the carb and like the gasket that we made. And I was trying to find like a little clutch lever that I could throw on here just to test it, but I can't find anything, and I'm still searching for original levers for this, so that might have to wait. But if we could just get this thing to run pretty good, you know, let it warm up, maybe just see if it bogs down and all when I rev it, then my goal for this video will definitely be a success. Alright guys, so the fuel line is all on. It's a little bit tight. I had to like stretch it out with like a match and like needle nose pliers, but I got it on. It's pretty snug, so I'm going to turn on the fuel and check for leaks. Oh, we do have one. I believe it is the petcock that is actually leaking. Because when I go all the way, it looks like it's leaking. Yeah, it looks like it's leaking like internally almost from the petcock, from that seal. I'm going to see if I have something to put in there to tighten it up. Maybe it's just a little bit loose. If not, I could probably just crack it and it'll be completely fine, but only when it's wide open does it start to leak. Alright, so I don't have anything that'll really fit in there and get a good grip, so I'm just going to go ahead and just crack it, and once, you know, I see if it's running good and everything, I can try and find a rebuild kit or something for the petcock, or an original replacement one. But let's go ahead and fire this thing up. I'm going to go ahead and just shake up the tank a little bit since it really hasn't been moved around. There are no leaks that I see coming from the carb. I'm just gonna let this thing just idle for a bit. I tried seeing if like the lights or anything will work now that it's running, but it's not. The battery on it is probably shot. Well, it definitely is shot. But I was hoping now that it's running, it would just run off the power that the engine is giving out. Next thing we do is once it runs and the oil goes around, kind of picks up anything that might have built up in there, we can go ahead and change that. Now it's just clearing up. Wow, this thing feels strong. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and cut it off now though. I don't want to run it for too long with this old oil in there. I still got to figure out what kind of oil that this thing needs, but I am still blown away on how good this thing is running. I mean, it just sounded like it cleared up a lot right there, and I am definitely curious to, you know, feel how quick this thing is. Like I said, I'm not going to throw on just random eBay special, you know, parts on this thing just to get it to drive. I'm going to try and do everything as original as I possibly can. And then once I source the parts for it, we could go ahead and take it for a drive. And then we're actually going to clean this thing up to the best of our abilities. Now, obviously, some of the rust on this thing is pretty bad, but I'm going to try my best with, you know, obviously not repainting anything to clean it up. But you guys could definitely expect like almost like a mini restoration series with this bike coming on the channel. I really like this bike. Like I keep saying, I wish it was mine. Maybe he'll, you know, want to sell it to me once it's all done. Highly doubt that. But it is such a sick looking bike. But anyway guys, I'm going to be ending off this video here. Like I was saying before, next video with this thing, we should be taking it for a drive as long as like the clutch and transmission works. And I'm probably going to put some new oil in it, because this oil probably lost all of its elements that makes it oil. And then once we confirm that the transmission and clutch works, we're going to go ahead and clean this thing up. But anyway guys, with that being said, I'll be ending it off here. Follow my social medias, they will be on the outro of this video. Instagram and Snapchat I use the most. But thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, comment, tell your friends about the channel.